So the long story is I'm living with a contradiction. I'm trying to live best of both worlds. And I knew at that point I'm in over my head. I was having a series of anxiety and panic triggered by anything that was this contradiction between male and female. Obviously to devolve to that place is one of the worst things that can happen to anybody. Yet at the same point, through my own Buddhist practice, I don't know how this happened. You could call it a download, an awareness, whatever. I was actually reminded of promises that I made in my life, being true and kind to myself. I was shown with clarity what my path forward was, which is like, I only have two options. It's to be myself or continue with a path that's going to be my destruction. At that point, for me, mentally, once I have clarity, the rest is making that clarity reality.
What do you really know about people who were born transgender? Have you ever met someone who's transgender? Well, if you're like me, you're curious but hesitant to ask questions. Well, welcome to Demystifying the Transgender Journey. In our conversations with people who were born transgender, their families, friends, and the professionals who support them, we ask probing questions and discover insightful and educational answers. You can also find more information on our website, thetransgenderjourney.com. Now let's get right into today's episode. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Demystifying the Transgender Journey, brought to you by Women Who Push the Limits. I'm one of your hosts, Lynn Murphy, and the other host, Wendy Cole, is joining us today. I'm the cisgender woman, she's the transgender woman, and we've been told that this is kind of a unique thing for a cisgender woman and transgender woman to be sharing the platform. Wendy's always said that her goal, her mission is to humanize the transgender experience. And so we're looking at this as an educational channel. And today we have just another fascinating guest. And our conversation today is going to go far beyond the headlines and the hashtags. She's going to offer an honest window into her own transition, sharing experiences that are both personal and universal. Tawni Acosta is a powerhouse, a transformational life coach, best-selling author, electrifying speaker, and a fearless advocate for LGBTQ communities. With over 35 years as a practicing Buddhist and a lived journey as a transgender woman, Tawni brings a rare depth of wisdom, resilience, and authenticity to everything she touches. Now, her mission is to spark radical personal growth, healing, and joy, helping people unlock their unique genius and thrive in every community they enter. From her journey of self-discovery, Tawni reveals the courage and resilience that it took to embrace her true identity and to thrive. So another thing that I love about Tawni is that in addition to the challenges of being born transgender, she shares a profound sense of hope, of healing, of connection that comes from living authentically and building supportive communities along the way. So get ready for a conversation that enlightens and inspires, and let's welcome Tawni Acosta.
Thank you, Lynn. This beautiful intro. So I really appreciate it. And nice to be here with both of you.
Well, thank you so much. We're so happy that you're here. And let me just give the audience just a little background on you, that you transitioned when you were in your mid-50s, which was 10 years ago. And you're going to share your experience today from your personal experience and also what you do as a coach to help other people do that. So start out giving us a little of your background and then move into what your transition was like, how it all happened.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so my background, wow, which one? But I'll just say I was born we can start from the easy part. So I was born in 1959 in Pasadena, California. And I was born into a academic family. My father was a professor at Caltech of mechanical engineering, and my mother, she had a degree in therapy, which she eventually changed careers. So I was raised in a very, very intellectual family, to say the least. And so all the people that I first grew up with were everybody that's in the top 1% of intelligence. So it's a very funny factor. Also, I grew up in an age where, in 1959, that America there was not the word transgender, or if there was the word, any word close to it, it was used in a derogative form. For anybody like myself or anybody in this realm, there's nothing available. Or what was available was the harshest, most unbelievable thing. So I think for me, at a very young age, number one, I started developing my own empathy as a coping skill.
Did you know you were transgender or that you were a woman in a boy's body?
I knew profoundly at a young age I was different. I didn't quite have the words or the verbiage, but I put it like this. It's kind of like if we look at our solar system, I love anything in astronomy. If we look at the solar system, all the planets orbit the sun. And to me, my central orbit was around femininity. So anything that was around that attracted me to that. And also I learned at that age, it was not really safe to express that. My father was a professor of engineering and an intellectual and highly accomplished. The way most people in that day dealt with somebody who was very feminine expressing was to really double down on masculizing this person. So I grew up with all those models, like John Wayne and all quote unquote the alpha males. When I was a young kid, that was the way my dad was going to fix me, which was just having me in all these hyper masculinized type of things. That was pretty harsh for me mentally. So I think as a person, your gift and your greatest difficulty are both one and the same. And so for me, at a young age, I developed empathy as a way of coping. And you could even use the word codependency, but I used that in a way of how to read the room, how to read people, how to know whether I was safe or not safe, how to blend into the environment in a way that I could to keep myself safe. I think at that age, it kind of gave me an intense feeling of independence and self-reliance.
So did you know you were hiding a secret? Did you feel like there was something you just couldn't tell? So this empathy,
Yes.
you safe from saying the wrong thing to the wrong person.
Exactly. And perceiving danger, whether fight, flight, or fear. So in a way, as a young kid, I'm always trying to figure out, is it safe for me? How am I going to fit in? How am I going to be in this circumstance? Because who I am and what I feel on the inside isn't really safe in this society as it is in the 60s.
So you spent your adult life in the body you were born in. So what precipitated the transition and the decision to transition, and that your whole journey of figuring out what you didn't realize you didn't have words for when you were young? How did you progress to the point of making that decision to transition?
Okay. Wow. That's quite the
Is that
journey.
enough questions at one time?
I can why don't we just kind of go with the quicker version, then we can dive into stuff that doesn't make sense.
Right.
For me, the habit of thoughts, consciously or unconsciously, I got into was hiding myself, hiding my true self. And throughout life, kind of became a PhD in all of that, that there's a whole energetic cycle with that. And it consumes unbelievable amounts of energy to do that. And so really what happened is I was married, did not have kids, but I was married for more than 20 years. I was kind of living the prescribed life, as it were. I was an information technology worker, eventually worked in project management, and then I worked within the realm of cable TV and satellite, in which I love those areas. But I think really what it became is little by little, it just became more and more painful not to be myself. And it became more and more consuming of my inner energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that started to put a lot of stress on everything about me. So if there's anything that ages you quickly, it's stress. And I'll use a word, it became painful. Sometimes I think what facilitated transition was literally when you suppress something that's so fundamental about who you are, the suppression is a lie because it comes out in other ways. Okay. And so how it came out for me is, of course, I'm a technology worker. So what comes out is like the beginnings of gay communities, the beginnings of LGBTQ communities, and as well transgender, all of these things. When the internet was kind of birthed in the early 90s, that all came out. And so what I developed was this kind of pattern. Number one was a common cycle for many people like us. I would buy women's clothing in secret. I would dress or present in secret and then switch back and keep up this facade. And as well, at the same time, another avenue of expression became available on the internet. I use the internet as my coping tool. In other words, connecting with other transgender people, meeting other people through the internet, which was safe and an anonymous way to do it. And also, again, it allowed me to maintain this facade. And so eventually what happened with myself is, like I said, number one, it consumes a lot of energy, stress, and so forth. And it became more and more and more and more painful every day to continue.
I did the same thing. I was married, had a family, the whole bit, and I worked in IT. So that was one of my check boxes. I had a career and I had a wife. And my marriage was not a normal marriage because I was living a lie, as you said. So how did you handle married life?
Oh, that's a very good question. On the one hand, the one thing that's really easy to speak into is, yeah, mentally and psychologically, the marriage gave me security.
Mm-hmm.
I belong in society as
Exactly.
So it gave me that. How was the marriage? Well, okay, I can speak for myself. Coming into a marriage and I'm living this enormous self-contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Fundamentally, I'm meeting with a partner, and consciously and unconsciously, that's coming out in various ways. So the marriage, I would say to me, it looked like a bell curve. First few years of marriage, we're very, very happy. And then there's this very slow, which became a fast descent downward, where it became hugely dysfunctional, largely on my part.
Mm-hmm.
So, the best way I could say it one way is like, it's like the big, giant pink elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
It's there all the time, but whatever you do, don't talk about it. So it's almost, I had a deep knowing, should I actually talk about it? Marriage wasn't gonna, that was gonna be the end. You know,
Mine came out in my sleep while I was talking in my sleep about being a woman.
oh my gosh.
She agreed not to divorce me as long as I didn't do anything about it. And at the time, I couldn't.
Yeah. I think in my case, how it came out was that I had really bad insomnia. And then she was a person who slept like a log. Really what I would do, my coping is I'd wake up at 1 a.m. and that's where I would explore all these online forums and all that type of stuff. And then I'd go back to sleep at 4 or 5 in the morning and then get back up and start my day, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
How did that affect the sex life? Well, our sex life was, I just want to volunteer that because it's fundamentally in a marriage, you're together all the time.
Right.
Eventually for me, being sexual with my wife just became something that I just couldn't do it anymore because every time I would, guess who comes out? Yeah, ta-da! And so, which, it's an act of intimacy, it's an act of sharing. And all of a sudden the facade is removed. And then it's like, oh my God. So then at some point during the marriage, it's just, how to put it, I couldn't perform. Literally, it didn't matter Viagra or pills, or it just wasn't going to happen. So
That's right.
I would cope, there's this coping, and then I would cope this by, I am a lifelong learner. So I would cope by immersing myself into stuff that I like to learn. Oh, I'm going to learn Spanish. Oh, I'm going to go back to learn music because I used to play music. I would just use that as a way as my escape.
Mm-hmm.
And so like managing all of this, it's crazy.
Oh, it's a full-time job, 24/7.
Here's the irony. So, like I said, I worked in the arena of cable TV, satellite, eventually streaming. But for about 12 years, I worked in an area of that, which was technology for sports entertainment, which is a very, very, very masculine environment.
Oh, totally.
And so that was hard. And it's just this contradiction. Well, if I'm here, then I'm really, really good. I'm really masculine, which I'm not. Second of all, I'm the cool bro, which I'm
Right.
not. So it's just all this stuff, which is living with all these contradictions. And for me, what really led to my transition, there is a perceived fear and pain of going forward and being who you are. Okay. And there is a real visceral pain of maintaining this facade. And eventually what happened is that I think one thing I finally got the courage to actually go out into the Los Angeles transgender scene, as it were, which at that time was just going out and clubbing at a couple of clubs.
Right.
So I'd have this experience where I did tell her about it. I got the courage to tell her about it. I got the courage, which didn't go well. I got the courage to say, look, I need to do this at least a couple times a month. Sorry.
So you were still married at that time?
I give you credit because a lot of people would do that and not tell.
Oh, no. I was going to tell.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I would say there's a lot of mini comings out that happened during our marriage, but they're all kind of like, how would I put it? It's like, excuse me, oh, that's not it. But there was this point where it's like, I just have to go out. I know it's inside my head. I know it's inside my heart. I now have to go out and see how real it is. And so in 2014, through some friends and community, I went out to transgender night in a club in Los Angeles. And that was proverbially the religious experience. And it is literally one of those experiences. When I presented it in public for the first time as Tawni, it is the act where you could use whatever verbiage. You can't put toothpaste back into the tube, a done deal, whatever. Once that act happened, everything else started marching forward.
There's no back button on it whatsoever.
There is no rewind.
So what was the feeling at that point?
It was euphoric. There's fear, there's all this stuff, and oh my God, are people going to see me and all this kind of things. But just all of a sudden to be in a room with all these other people who are like myself and actually have time to do makeup and get together a wardrobe to go out in. And it was an exquisite event, seriously. And I had a friend in the community who I knew online, and she was one like, look, if you go out to the club tonight, I'll go there and meet you. So then that gave me a commitment, like, well,
right.
Who's going to be there? I better freaking show up.
She's holding you accountable.
100%. And so I still have that picture of the two of us together. So that act was so profound. If you've heard neurobiologists talk about this, it's in the neurobiology of the brain. And so once all those pathways are lit up, and there's a movie in the 80s that came out called The Search for Fire. It was like the, primal man's search for actually creating fire and da-da-da-da-da. And I think once that happened, it's just this undeniable need that must be satisfied.
Right.
He was pushing you to that. But then once you experienced that, did the pain go away? Was it still there? What was going on there at that point?
Very good question. What was going on is I was trying to, for a very short time, I was trying my best to have the best of both worlds.
Okay.
That didn't last long.
It doesn't usually work either.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I first came out like about February of 2014. And about a few months into that, it's like, I need help. And thankfully, again, I believe that everything's connected. We were talking about this earlier, synchronistically speaking. The time that I decided to come out was just the time where the whole equation of transitioning had changed dramatically. And so there was a much more humanistic aspect of it, whereas before it was this heavy-duty gatekeeping medicalized version of it, which was cruel. Is the best way I can put it. So it just changed in, I believe,
2012.
So I came out in 2014. What a great time to come out, really.
Yep.
when I did do that, about 6 months of living this club life and this dual life, which is like even a more
How
intense.
did your wife relate to that?
It's like this. I would use this analogy. I was coming out of the closet, and she, by her own identity, who was invested in a marriage and all that, she went into the closet because she didn't want to talk to anybody about what's going on with her.
Husband.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then I'm having this process of like, oh my God, this is it.
Mhm.
And
And
she,
you're happy.
yes, I'm happy and flourishing, and I'm 50 plus going on 16 years old.
Exactly.
So the long story is I'm living with a contradiction. I'm trying to live best of both worlds. And I knew at that point I'm in over my head. And I sought out a therapist. We call them a gender therapist or a therapist who specializes in working with transgender people. And again, by fortune of being in Los Angeles, there is a vast array of them. I got to choose. So I started working in therapy for the first time. And I think the first time just walking into the therapist's office, I didn't even present. I came in mail, no presentation. And then the first thing she says, well, wouldn't you like a new lease on life? I'm like, God, yes. That was her first question. I'm like, okay, sign me up. I'm in for this. And so I think there's perhaps a bad part of me. We all have our personality. I can be very stubborn. So my stubbornness was trying to keep the best of these both worlds things going. And basically what happened is I kept doing that. I was working with a therapist, but in August of 2015, I was having a series of anxiety and panic and anxiety attacks, panic attacks. And it's like the attack would be triggered by anything that was this contradiction between male and female. And I was going into work, and when I would go into work, I just ceased to be able to really function at all. And in August of 2015, I got to the point where I became suicidal.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. And I can say this in hindsight. And what I can say in hindsight, it was the worst. You know, obviously to devolve to that place is one of the worst things against anybody. Yet at the same point, say spiritually or mentally or whatever, I have never had so much clarity in my life. Right. And the clarity, number one, it's like, you know, through my own Buddhist practice, I don't know how this happened. You could call it a download, an awareness, whatever. I was really shown what happened should I commit that act. I was actually reminded of promises that I made in my life, you know, being true and kind to myself. And really, I was shown with clarity what my path forward was. I only have two options. It's to be myself or continue with a path that's going to be my destruction.
Right.
And at that point, for me, mentally, once I have clarity, the rest is making that clarity reality. It was easy for me at that point to make a decision. There was lots of hard things that happened in that process, but at that point, it was so clear. And that, to me, that was my gift. That dark moment gave me that gift of clarity.
I can totally relate to everything you're saying, completely. I hit my dark place in November of 2014. And that's what triggered my trip to the therapist in January of 2015. And by July of 2015, I was me. I was done. And I did not try to bring anything forward with me. I knew from the experiences in the last century that that doesn't work. I was married to a cisgender woman who expected to be married to a man. And I was never a man up here. And like you, got clarity and moved forward.
And so, yeah, we're still married. I started the hormonal treatment later in the fall of 2015. The way I started was very, very light, and then they ramped up into the more powerful transitional dosages. But even the first time, proverbially taking those pills, thank you, the Matrix.
Exactly.
The first act of taking estrogen for the first time, it's like, oh my God. It just felt like these clouds of darkness were just leaving my life.
Mhm.
It was euphoric. You will hear many of us say that it was a euphoric moment, which just continued with how that progression happened. And
Almost
so
like a magic pill.
it was 100%. My biology was meant to receive estrogen. And so living in a body delved in testosterone that is like poison.
Right.
Oh, what an interesting way to describe that. Yeah. So you've been practicing Buddhism for years. And so you knew, I mean, you kind of identified whether you call this a download or this vision or whatever, you recognized it, you valued it. And that sounds like that's the point that you shifted.
Yes. It was one of the clearest moments of my life. And so in one way, I started the whole process of a medical transition. And then it started slow. And then when I really totally like, this is it, I'm going to the full thing, that was the day my divorce started. And it was a very hard thing because my ex and I were very, very, very close. So emotionally untangling it for me, everybody's different, but for me, it wasn't a snap of the finger. It took some time to unwind all of that. But oh my God, the way things worked out. And I think my journey, maybe similar to yours, was that I had to lose all these encumbrances of my previous life.
Exactly.
And a lot of that is like a literal death and a metaphorical death as well. In that process, on the one hand, there's this immense beauty and euphoria. On the other hand, for me, there was a lot of grieving and loss that goes with that. And both have to be accepted with equal importance.
Exactly. I looked at mine as I was shedding everything which no longer supported me.
It took us a while. I continued with the process, and it's so funny. My ex and I selling our home, we lived in a very nice suburban neighborhood of Los Angeles, selling our home. Just getting to that point was really difficult. But once we did, we sold the home. Oh God, it's so synchronistic. Here's the beauty of being yourself is the synchronicities can happen. One, you're yourself. Two, you're open. If you're not yourself, you can't be open.
No more secrets.
If you can't be open, the things that need to happen can't arrive into your life.
Right.
You're blocking them.
Exactly. Exactly. So what happened with me is that while we're working on selling our house, my mind gets in a million and one places. Then I get kind of cluttery, but that's not my normal state. And at the same time, my ex, because she's suffering in this relationship. And so she kind of fell into hoarding.
Oh,
And so us trying to sell our house, that was not easy. And so really, I think she gave me this gift because, I was saying earlier that I developed these coping skills that could be viewed as like codependency and chameleon-like and all these things that are not very healthy. Yet on the other hand, the challenge of us separating is what actually led for me asserting who I am, becoming uncompromising on the things that were essential about myself. So it's like, in a weird way, I look back at it with appreciation because it gave me the learned lessons in life that I needed. And it taught me how to stand up for myself, which in some way I didn't really know that.
That's a very important lesson. And that's one that you, I'm sure, are passing on to your clients too.
I call a lot of what we go through in the very early stages of beginning to live full time and all of that, the mental work of transitioning.
Yes.
We absolutely have to mentally and emotionally transition as well.
It's kind of like our spirit, or it's already there. And the
Right.
slow brain and all this stuff that we accumulated, it has to catch up.
Right. And we have to deconstruct all that socialization we went through for decades.
Oh, yes. So I think what really happened is finally through a very, very slow separation process and a slow divorce process, We sold our house. Actually, we
Mhm.
sold it in one day, which is
Of course.
because we had this situation at home. We need professional organizers to get the house ready to sell. I knew when we had the professional organizers coming to our house, I had to take the lead because otherwise it'd be sabotage. I met the team lead and I talked to her, hi, da da da, here's the situation, here's what I need. It's like, I don't care about my junk. You can throw away anything. I'll just tell you what not to. The rest, I don't care. It's like, you need to work with my wife and you need to spend a lot of time with her. You don't need to worry about me. And then she told me her husband was trans on the side. And then we immediately bonded. And she
Oh,
was
wow.
a friend for many years to follow. So again, it's like the synchronicities, the things that have to leave your life need to leave your life.
A gay female couple came into my house.
Oh my God.
And of course I bonded.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, you know, what happened was at that same time we're arranging this, I knew there's the deepest knowing. I knew I needed all the gender affirming surgeries. And so I started to, before the move and the selling of the house was happening, I started to get consultations and all that, which is like a comedy show. Here's the beauty of it. What had happened is the biggest hospital in Los Angeles, one of the most well-renowned, like 6 months prior, just started their transgender program. And my friend had been through that with their program. And originally I wanted some of these big name fancy people, but they all had wait lists of many years. So here's what happened. I got on their schedule. I did the consult. And what is normally a year to 5-year wait, because it was a new program, I got a date in 6 months.
Right.
And it was phenomenal. So really what happened, we sold our house. I moved into my house in West Hollywood. So I moved into the big gay area of Los Angeles, which is like a coming of age story or something, which is beautiful. And then from there, 3 months later, I had my first gender affirming surgery or bottom surgery or sexual reassignment surgery, or we could call it many other names, but I had that first surgery.
Getting your birth defect corrected.
Yes.
That's what I called it.
And it was incredible experience.
I can so totally relate to everything you've said. I have one question. Let me frame it this way. I knew going into my surgery in 2017, I had repressed so much of my personality and so many other things about me. One of the other things I know I repressed was my sexual orientation. Going into surgery, I had no idea what that was. And my therapist said to me, "You'll figure it out when you get there." Okay, she's right. And after surgery, that's when I figured it out.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow. Yes.
So what happened with you?
Oh my God. So I think really what happened, number one, I'll say this about the surgery. It's just, if I want to deliver a message to people, because this is my lived truth, when you're fully expressed and going through that process, because, you know, who we are continually changes and continually. That's just a human thing.
We keep evolving.
100%. We keep evolving. And so going through that process genuinely and authentically. So number one, I moved out. 3 months later, I had my bottom surgery. And it's one of the top hospitals in Los Angeles. The standards of care are the most excellent. When I got out of surgery, I have this memory. They asked, you know, what's your pain? I said 10, and they gave me the happy drugs. And then my friend's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to go out for tapas in my drug-induced state. Here's what really happened. Because this hospital is on the border of West Hollywood and Beverly Hills, they get a lot of VIP clients, VIP, showbiz, et cetera, those types of people. So what happened was the hospital was totally full after I got out of surgery. So yours truly got the VIP room to recovery.
Oh.
I get emotional thinking about that because I had a view into the beautiful Santa Monica Mountains that it overlooked. This is who I'm meant to be. Okay, I will say recovering from the surgery was an experience. Number one, that's about as fundamental of a reconfiguration as you can have.
Mhm.
And sexuality, it wasn't an instant thing. If you're asking me today, what's my sexuality? I'm definitely bisexual. I like
Okay.
men and women. As far as relationship, I still love women.
Okay.
And I love them on a very profound, because it's now to share the emotionality of how women can connect.
Mhm.
That's phenomenal. Yet sexually, I enjoy both.
Okay.
That took some time to really work out.
That was an evolution, I bet, as well.
100%. Because, speaking of repression, did I repress my sexuality? Oh, God,
Mhm.
God, yes. So then coming out of that surgery, it's like, whoa, where am I? I don't know. One of the things that I was recovering from in that process, my surgeon said, okay, your mind and all your nerves now have to rewire.
Mhm.
So he's like, so what you need to do is you need to go to adult store and get
Right.
toys. And you need to start stimulating yourself. You need to start masturbating. And this is the healthiest thing. This is what you need to do. As a matter of fact, not doing it is going to be not good for you. So,
Right.
I mean, just this first experience, there was up the street on Sunset Boulevard where I lived in West Hollywood, there was this giant, hustler place. And then I went in, I'm like, okay, I want sex toys. And there's like this table. It seemed like something out of the Apple store. And I'm like,
Oh,
no
God.
like, you want to help? And I'm like, finally, after about 20 minutes of just staring, I'm like, yeah, can you help? And, and to actually, to
Mhm.
enjoy sexually, to have satisfaction sexually, to engage that was, whoa, that was huge. And
And you feel different than when you were a man.
good God, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it couldn't be more different.
Interesting.
It couldn't be more different. And
Whole body orgasms.
precisely, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly what it is. I would joke, living as a man is kind of like, this is my rifle, this is my gun. Whereas as a woman, it's an emotional experience. It's a whole body experience. It's an everything experience. And it's like, wow, when I look back, do you want a new lease on life? Oh my God, I got to be a virgin again. So it's like, whoa. So it's really irreplaceable. It's truly irreplaceable. And it's a
Right.
beautiful experience. And I think really, I had lived so long with this mindset of a guy forcing myself to do this and buckling down and being tough and all those things. And so really, I had to restart my life as a woman.
And how much easier is it to be feminine? We had to work at being guys.
Oh, good God, yes. Yeah,
So natural.
yes. Just like you, I talk with my hands. When I was with my wife, she's like, you hold and do your hands exactly like your mother. I'm like, I never knew I did that. But then all of a sudden, there's no restraint on that expression. And I was in the heart of this primarily gay community in Los Angeles. And it was just, what I would say is really, my life prior was like, it was just like this film noir, black and white movie. And all of a sudden, my life became the 4D amusement park, just to fully express everything. And I began to just never have so much fun. In the black and white, even what was happy was a very muted experience. And all of a sudden, just enjoying things that I never really enjoyed, enjoying going to parties, enjoying going to after parties, enjoying Sunday brunches, and enjoying camaraderie with people. It was a phenomenal experience. And I think what was really good is that in that time period, I was trying to return to my previous career. I was trying very hard to return to that, thinking like, well, I'll land a good job. I'll land my six-figure job with bonuses and this and that. And money-wise, everything will be great. And none of it worked out. None of it. And so I had to start do these things that women did. Well, I go in interview jobs and dumb down my resume. And then go in interviewing the job knowing I know this job better than you, and they still wouldn't take me. And then finally, it was the attachment. There's lots of attachments to let go of. For me, some came quickly, some took time. For me, letting go of my career was so much about my identity that letting go of that took a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And rebuilding from the bottom up. I got to make money somehow. So I just started doing Uber and Lyft. But doing Uber and Lyft as a woman's like, wait a minute, this is really different. And so, I quickly learned I'm not doing evening time bar crawls because I don't want drunks who are getting out of hand in my car.
Right.
Then we had the pandemic. I had a whole nother voyage that happened with the pandemic because, my father was going through the dying process, a 2-year dying process.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would say is that first, there's 3 main surgeries. We can add in 4, but I wanted the 3 major surgeries, which was bottom surgery, breast augmentation, and facial surgery, and then adding in some hair transplant.
Okay.
Really, the first surgery gave me a sense of wholeness that I never had before in my life.
Mm-hmm. I discovered that for the 1.5 years that I lived as Wendy, authentically, but still had my male parts, I had imposter syndrome. I didn't realize how badly I had it, though. It wasn't with me during the day, but it was at night and in the morning.
Yeah, that would make sense. I could see how that makes sense. I think that number 1, I knew. Number 2, I had the help from the therapist.
Mm-hmm.
That, okay, this isn't fantasy, this is necessity and reality.
Right.
And 3, when I had that surgery and I recovered from it, there is a sense of wholeness that I had never experienced before. Like, this is right. That's what my brain always needed.
Mm-hmm.
So
it hit me on 30th Street in Manhattan.
my doggie is letting me know she's here. So I'll introduce. This is Yuki. She has been with me through all my surgeries and everything.
Oh,
She's a mini pincher, which means she has a Doberman's brain.
Smart dog.
She's very smart. So anyway, here's what really happened is that surgery gave me something so profound that I needed. I know I needed the other ones as well, but I had to put a pause on my transition. And my father had, in the process, I didn't mention this at first, but I should say it. One of the things that really spurred my transition is my mom passed away in 2011. I had a delayed grieving about 2 years later. And that grieving is what brought out the process of me dealing with me. So what happened later is after my mom passed away, my dad remarried at 89, but against the advice of just about everybody, he remarried, which turned out to be really a gold digger. And so I was in the right place. I was in the right mental place. I was in the right physical place that I could go about dealing with this next challenge. So to make a long story short, all of our family finances and wills and trusts were all being modified because of that circumstance. And so I had to take on and own that fight. Because I'd been through the right amount of that process, I could do it. And again, this was a gift, but what had happened was, had I not stood up for this, number 1, my father was being abused physically, mentally, financially. It's a whole nother topic, which is elder care and all the things that can happen.
oh yeah.
So my gift, in a weird way, my dad had turned over a lot to this lady. And she was just getting him to do things like selling our family house in Northern Orange County, which was worth a heck of a lot of money. And she's just getting him to do things and turn it over to her. So I had to fight that. At the same time, my dad is aging rapidly, and he's going through a cognitive decline, and he has had many, many, many slip and falls. So in this process, it's like the circumstance that teaches you. It taught me how to be a detective. It taught me how to understand legal things, which I didn't understand anything about that, wills, trusts, and all that. And so I had to engage in a 2-year legal battle against my dad's wife. At the end of 2 years, during the pandemic, number one, I got the right to legally care for my father medically.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I got to manage the finances. And then after that, my older sister and I came together and we filed a financial case against the wife, and we won back significant amount of money. Long story short, because I did all that, then come to a moment and rest after all that, which is a powerful life experience. And then after that, I was able to get the other surgeries that I wanted because I now had the cash to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the cash to pay for the surgeon that I wanted, not what insurance was going to pay for.
Right.
And so parenthetically or crazy, January 6, 2021, I had the facial surgery and the breast augmentation.
And that was a very, very hard 2 years for you as a child of your father, having to go in and do all that fighting for him.
Yes. And when the court case came up, of course, she manipulated my father to the point like that, well, because I'm transgender, I'm not mentally capable.
Right.
So I gotten written out of the will and the trust. But the reason why I could win my case is he changed everything except 2 documents. The 2 most important: legal power of attorney, legal medical power of attorney, legal financial power of attorney. He never changed those. But I had to go in front of a court of law, and all the documentation is in my old name.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had to go and assert, no, I am the sanest person in this room, and here is why. And here's all the documentation I have.
Right.
Here's all the medical malfeasance that I can prove. Here is financial malfeasance that I can prove. And this is why I am doing this.
Did you have your name changed legally before then?
Yes, I changed my name legally I filed at the end of 2016, and it was, I think it was March 11th, 2017, when I was granted that.
So you had that with these court documents that you had to submit.
Yes, I had to use that documentation everywhere.
But isn't it interesting that this, like you were using the word synchronicity, how these things came together when they did, and the kind of position you were in? You probably wouldn't have been able to fight like that if you hadn't been through these experiences where you had to stand up for yourself.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The person I was couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
There's no way.
And with all this going on, with your transition, your father, the wife, what did you do, Tawni, to maintain your equilibrium and your mental health through all this? Was it more than just the therapist? What did you do?
I mean, a bunch of things. I think to reapply one's creativity, we have to rebuild a network.
Mm.
We have to rebuild a network as a woman. We have to rebuild our own support network. That is crucial. And in the line of synchronicity, then I met a friend in my Buddhist group. She was my best friend. And she became the friend in my process that helped support me as I was going through the legal battles. And just anytime I had something to do, she goes, I'll go with you. So I had to drive from Los Angeles to San Diego and back and forth. And I had to do that 3 or 4 days a week. And many, many times, or there's times that I had to do things that were so 100% out of my comfort zone, something I would never do. And my friend was always there with me. That's one thing. It's crucial. It is imperative, I would use those words, to develop your own support group. And as women, I think we are more wired up to do that naturally.
You had a support group or a group of friends as a couple, but you were no longer a couple. You were no longer.
It was new groups of friends.
Yeah, so you had to build those from scratch, it sounds like.
Oh, 100%, absolutely.
Yeah, because everybody runs away from us.
There was a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people who stuck around who I knew. There's some people that I just didn't know, and I'm pleasantly surprised they stuck around. But I think in terms of navigating a new life, You create a whole different circle of friends, you create a whole different circle of relationships, you take a whole different group of people that stay with you as you go through, or come in and out of your life as you go throughout these various segments of your journey.
Right. I would definitely agree with that.
So that's kind of to support me. I think number one is that I had the right people magically popped into my life.
Right.
I say magically, but nothing's a coincidence.
It's the universe saying, here, you're on your path, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So here, these are these people that are showing up in your life.
It is.
And experiences showing up in your life.
The one thing that was a benefit as far as doing this later in life is I did know the necessity of doing the inside work, which is working with therapists, which is working with spirituality, which is working with all these things. And to have all that in one's grasp or as a resource is the ultimate form of support. And I think it segues into how did I get into coaching? Because number one, when I coach people, I have a rich lived experience to coach into. Yet at the same point, I coach into people's, look, not being myself almost cost me my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here as a coach because you don't have to wait. Life is too short. And as a coach, I am well equipped. One, I've been trained very, very, very well. Second, I have lived experience. And third, if this is what you want, I can be your catalyst and your guide through this. I'm a part of this. So that really became my mission. You know, again, did it happen quickly? Not really. Yet, you know, it's all under different timescales. So I lived as him up until my 50s. So I've been living as Tawni for 11 years. Well, if you're just a cisgender person, a woman or a man, you've lived all your assigned gender and you're quite comfortable that way. We'll take 40 or 50 of your years of life and squish that into 10.
Right.
That's what this life experiences is. So a lot of it's quite an accelerated pace. I think I had to just fall into this career naturally. I originally was interested in becoming a traditional therapist. I am one of my best friends. She was a PhD in therapy and she talked me out of it. She's like, don't do it. She goes, you're going to pay way too much money. It's going to take forever. You're going to be so far in debt. You're a smart person. Go out there and go into coaching. And it's so funny though, but then when I went into coaching, I'm a learner, I'm a lifelong learner. So I really invested in, you know, having a lot of depth to my practice, having a lot of different modes of practice. How do you say, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail? And as a coach, to work with people requires a lot of flexibility, it requires a lot of agility to meet the person where they are and to serve them where they are. And so I think the beauty of this experience is that I have coached men, I've coached women. With men, it's like, okay, as a woman, I can hold space for you that you need to be held and you can be vulnerable with me.
Well, and you knew what it was like to live as a man. We talked about that, the pressures, the stress of being a man and being in charge.
There's incredible stresses at being a man. And one of the things is not being able to open up and be vulnerable, because that is not rewarded in our society. So I really create that safe space as a coach for people. I really do help people. Literally, it's called identity shifts. I help people go through that. That could be, you go through a divorce and you're a different person. You choose a new career. Okay. You know, transitioning is the big kahuna of identity shifts. So I help people make those transitions in their life. It could be that what I've been really successful with is helping people, maybe they're in their 40s and 50s, and what used to bring them success is not working right now, though they don't know it. And in the mind will always go back to what provided its safety, unless you can actually break all those connections and get a fresh perspective. And so as a coach, that's what I really help people with. And it's so part and parcel to my lived experience. And I think what it is that sometimes a well-placed question can literally change a person's life. A well-placed question comes from a lived experience. Fewer words can be the best. Our words carry power and force to them because they're a lived experience.
Well,
They're
and
not
you
just
and I talked
observing.
before about transitioning at an older age as opposed to some of the people who are transitioning in their teens or in their 20s. And it sounds to me like what you're saying is you had all this experience that you brought to life at the point that you transitioned, that now you can do things that you wouldn't have been able to do if you had transitioned earlier. Can you address that for me?
Sure. Thank you. So right now I'm in the realm, why we're here today. I'm in the realm of entrepreneurship. So one of the things that I never learned because I was raised more in academia was learning how to sell, learning how to do business. And so I can honestly say, thank God I was going through a coaching program because I never realized about those issues, how much trauma I had around that. And those were all a lot of things to be able to do this, I had to release. I know deeply that I'm supposed to speak. Our voice carries power. My voice carries power. Your voice carries power. Our lived experience, our truth carries power to people. And it breathes life into circumstances, challenges, situations. So as a coach, I had to be a consumer of that. You could call it the coaching process. You could call it therapeutic, all of the above. So the best way to say is I had to embody and live what I am now going to give to people. That it's not just a theory. So right now, to be in a realm of entrepreneurship and actually to have the willingness and the resourcefulness to embrace the type of changes needed to do that. And as an entrepreneur, I travel in all kinds of groups of people, and some people may not be very accepting. Some people may. I get asked to speak, and I have to speak in front of people. I may be full of speaking up into people who may not at all be aligned with who I am. So speaking is a talent, it's a skill, it's a craft. And so in this time period, I'm still learning how to speak to sell, how to speak to do entrepreneurship, and how to just speak and reach people and change lives. And so I really deeply feel that's part of what my call to mission, or just part of what I determined that I wanted to do. And so I feel really happy doing this. I feel filled up, and I also feel very challenged.
That's what life is, though, isn't it? I mean, to me, that's what gives me the richness of life, to have those challenges, to feel like I've accomplished something by overcoming a challenge. There's a few steps backward, a few steps forward, and the thrill of doing something different. You're in a position where you're not in a box where you have to do certain things.
Oh
You
my God.
choose who you work with.
Yes.
Get to do different groups, different types of topics. And it just sounds like an exciting thing to be able to do.
Yeah. And like we were saying earlier, the evolution just keeps going.
Yeah.
And also I'm 65. So it's almost like I don't feel 65. Many of us may say that, yet at the same time, there's realities about being 65.
But you can do business the way you want to do business.
Right now, it's like, how did I work as an employee all these years? How did I do that? I know I did it, but right now it's like, I can't even, let's say if I wound back the clock and I was 30 or 40, I couldn't even conceive of working for anybody else right now.
Yeah. And you have those choices now.
Yes.
Because of what's happening. Well, what surprises you the most about your life?
I think what surprises me is when I was first transitioning, prior to transitioning, there's an inner dialogue going on in your head. So what goes on inside your head, it all turns into a lot of mental clutter. And the further and further I got down this path, the less and less mental clutter I have in my life. And the more I'm just me. I'm the person I'm supposed to be. I guess what I get blown away by right now, my dog just jumped in my lap, so she needs to say hi too.
Oh, how cute.
What surprises me right now the most is how much me just being myself has impact on other people. Some in our LGBTQ plus communities, some who have nothing to do with it at all. The beginnings when I got into entrepreneurship and speaking, I was very shy about sharing my experience because it was just like, oh, I don't know, maybe I need to say this a different way. Maybe I need to say it in a way they'll understand. But no, the more and more yes, I want to put a lot of thought of how I say it. But the more and more I just get out there and say it, I never know the impact that has. And then, to me, that is magical. And it's why, if you think, why are you here? Who you're supposed to be? Why are we on this planet at this time? I think it's crucial, having a lived experience, who you're just genuinely who you're supposed to be. The second thing, what I feel is, I feel a lot of freedom because things now come into my life. What's happened to me recently is I'm partnering with a friend, and actually we formed a business, which is a travel agency. And in the travel agency, we can recruit other people to be travel agents, but also ourselves. Yes, to promote travel and coaching, because one thing you do in coaching is retreats. So then I can kind of take bites at the apple on both sides of that, both financially, but also just what I want to do. I love to travel. That all this thing somehow just makes sense. That's what surprises me. Things all of a sudden, you can call them synchronicities, you can call them intentionality or determination. Yet at the same point, things evolve and they make sense. There's a youthfulness that comes with that.
And then you can see how things all work together. To be able to stand back and take a higher view of what's happened, to see those things, to look back at your life.
Absolutely.
That you wouldn't have seen when you were 20 or 30.
Oh, definitely. Definitely not. And I think at the same point also to really come to peace with these two lived lives that I've had, and even to really appreciate the person that I was. Talk of it as two people, and in a way it is, and in a way it isn't. To really have come to peace and really appreciate the person I was, that actually took work. And so I think doing that, there's like a beauty to that. And I think whether I say that in words or whether I just be it, and it's mostly just being it, that is what allows a life to be really joyful. I settled this case with my father. I took a break with one of my friends in West Hollywood. We took a vacation to Arizona, and little did I know, eventually in 2022, I bought a home out in Phoenix. And this was the next phase of my life. And what I really realized is moving to a different location, it's not like moving changes you, okay? Moving to a different location gave me a clean slate, which lets me embrace and fully express this phase of my life. It's different. It's different. It's a totally different city than Los Angeles.
I can totally relate to that completely. I moved as well.
And the type of home I was able to purchase here, there's no way I could do it in Los Angeles. Again, it's so synchronistic. One of my trans friends moved here about a year before I did, and I was just traveling here all the time. And then when I settled my case, my finances changed overnight. I was in a position, still had to take my time, where the right time, right place, right thing happened. And I was able to purchase this home. It went from internet to escrow in like 3 days, which doesn't happen to me normally. And I think the thing that happened is to launch this phase of my life. I love California, I love Los Angeles, but I needed a clean slate. And then the clean slate is actually not going back into my old patterns.
So then you're meeting new people, you're in new experiences.
Oh, yeah.
You're where you're supposed to be, maybe.
Yeah. And I could come back to LA, I could do other things.
Yeah.
To do what I'm doing, it took change, it took work, all that type of stuff. The fact that I had a home and a nice place, and also I was restarting anew, I could redo all this new work and new work on myself as well, that it was literally a clean slate. It's going to be whatever I make it or whatever I decide to make it. And we all have free will.
Well, and we're living in a world where there are so many differences. And it's hard for people to bridge those differences. How would you describe what you're doing and what you've learned from trying to bridge those differences and dealing with the negativity that's out there?
Well, first of all, there's the old Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times, and boy, do we ever right now. And I think the biggest thing that I try and do to address it, I mean, it's very real what is happening here in the United States politically. It's very, very real. And there was a lot of gut checks for me, as a trans woman, because there's so much anti-trans stuff, anti-LGBTQ stuff. There is so many laws going on. It's a lot to deal with. And I think the biggest thing I go to, number one, I address myself every day. Where am I today? There's days that I've had to haul back and
Are you
just
talking about emotionally, where are you? Or are you talking about physically, where are you?
emotionally, spiritually. Okay. Because the thing is, it's what is happening is real. But there's things that affect me right now.
Mhm.
In a couple of years, I'll have to renew my passport. Okay, that's changed right now. Okay. So what's going to happen? I don't know. I have my intuitions about this, about where it's going to land, but who knows? The biggest thing I know is working to the best of my ability every day at my own agency as me. And it turns out that's a big job. Second, again, because of the place that I'm in, I have a wide range of people that I can engage. Like, oh my God, today I'm crazy. I have people that I can work it out with. I think as a coach, there's a couple of things. Professionally, I work with people and I like to charge quite a bit for what I do. I do want to get to the point and get some grants that I want to start some nonprofits that offer this as an alternative to many of our people, because holistically, there's so many things that I can do that if you are a traditional therapist, you can't. There's things called energy work. So I do energy work as part of my coaching. So energy work, there's a medicalized version of that. How fabulous would that help people going through transitional surgeries? There's a version of medical hypnosis, okay, which I'm very skilled in hypnosis, but that's not my primary. So there's a medical version of it that can really, truly help people. But more importantly, I see coaching as an adjunct with therapy. But when somebody gets into a spot where you're suffering these deep afflictions, there is therapy there and it is needed as well. I kind of view therapy in a little bit of the medicalized model. So if I get really sick, I see a doctor, he boosts me up to the point where I'm not quote unquote sick. All right. I see therapy as a little bit of the same, and I see that coaching and therapy intersect at some point, but really therapy or coaching itself is a path of excellence. And I want to use that word judiciously. By excellence, what is excellence for you? What is excellence in your life? And what needs to be expressed in so coaching is a path to actually unlock all that stuff. I know you're going to say something, Wendy, because I can see it. So I want to hear what you have to say.
I totally agree with you on that. A therapist, in my viewpoint, is someone who helps you unpack all your baggage from the past, and with your current life, where you're at. Coaching picks up from where they're at and gets them unstuck and helps them move forward. That's the thing that I've seen in our community is so many people are just stuck.
Yes.
And there's a belief that transition is difficult and takes a long time. That's prevalent in our community. If that's what you believe, that's how it will be.
Absolutely.
And so many our sisters and brothers out there don't know about doing the mental work to change your thought patterns and your beliefs so that you get unstuck.
Yes.
And you find joy on the other side.
100%. Now more than ever, we have understandings about afflictions that we never had before, whether it's PTSD or trauma or even bipolar. But here's the incredible thing about that is where it becomes antithetical is that they become a label.
Mm-hmm.
And that label becomes our flag on the hill that we're willing to die for, parenthetically speaking. And so a lot of coaching is like, okay, do all the things medically you need to do. I'm not going to coach you on that. If me coaching you helps you unlock something you need to do, fabulous. Yet, having addressed that, let's challenge all those labels that are not serving us. Let's challenge the thoughts. Let's challenge the beliefs. And as you let go of those things, you let go of those attachments. I'm going to use it puts all of you in coherence. You can resonate, your life resonates at a much higher frequency. If this all sounds like woo-woo, but it isn't.
It's not.
I'm obsessed with these things because actually it's the truth. There's a whole coaching institute, which is heart math, which is the coherence between your mind and your heart, which are two brains. And now we've discovered you have three. You have your head, you have your heart, and you have your gut.
Exactly.
So those are levels of understanding that we have. And modern science has neglected this. As coaching, that's what I engage because our body tells us about stuff. So it's called somatic coaching, which is engaging our body to tell us about things that need to be addressed. I so appreciate the one friend who talked me out of this, of being a traditional therapist. And now I have one of my transgender friends is the therapist, and she works with transgender people. And then she's growing her practice to actually deal with things that are opening up on her end. So I really see that we're really just two sides of the same equation. My dream, and I'm going to look towards getting funding for this, is, for example, the Los Angeles LGBTQ Center is one of the largest in the world. And because it's so well developed, they have a medical branch. And the medical branch actually is like a prepaid provider. I can't say that quickly. A PPO. And so, this is an idea that I'm going to work on, but to use coaching and therapy, because what happens in the center, they take in a lot of people where they have very serious things that needs to be addressed by therapy. That's not my lane.
Right.
And so my dream is actually to be this place where you actually triage people and allow because there are so many things, even that are not therapeutic, that reduce stress, they reduce anxiety, they reduce tension, even depression. And coaching's been proven to do that.
Yeah. And I've actually tried to reach out to therapists saying, let's work together. You have transgender patients, they need to see you. That's an absolute fact. But I can also help them on the other side. And the two together are phenomenal. I've had clients who had their therapists and they saw their therapists weekly and they saw me. And boy, did they move. They really transitioned well.
That's the point.
Well, we've been talking about techniques and things you can do, but if and when you clients who are at the beginning and kind of struggling with listening to what's going on in the world today and having fear and trepidation about, do I want to transition? Don't I want to transition? Not just the techniques, but what would you tell someone who's at that point of making a decision about pursuing this and all the things that go with it?
Right. Number one, let's acknowledge the reality that's going on. Because it's real. I'm not going to feed anybody a you-know-what sandwich. Okay.
But out of all of the things going on, not a lot of it has turned into laws that are ironclad. They're all being challenged.
See, the thing is, we live in a dynamic world. So really, it will sound like therapy, but I do kind of a coaching version of cognitive behavior therapy, which gets into what are your beliefs. Okay, here's what happens. We all have filters that we build up inside here. Okay, our mind, we take in more information than our conscious mind can handle in one moment. We take in over 11 million bits of information a second. Our conscious mind can only handle somewhere around 139, 144 bits per second. So how does it handle it? It does a brain hack. It goes back into filters and generalizations and deleting and distorting information. So as part of coaching, we actually challenge, okay, what internal representation is this triggering in you? What thought, belief, and behaviors are these doing for you? And okay, if we can let go of these, what are the new inspired action you can have that will come out of this? So a lot of that is taking those deep dives into how your brain is working and doing stuff. And so coaching is a process of really growing that neurology into make new connections, releasing the old attachments, and having new inspired action come out of that. And so it's really miraculous. And that's why, as I think as a coach, Who gets more out of the session or a long engagement? Who gets more out of it, me or the client? Well, yes.
Yes, you both do.
So I think the message is let me rephrase this a little bit in coaching speak, is to bring a person into a state of resourcefulness. Okay. When we're acting upon labels and representations that trigger our trauma, that trigger our negative thoughts and beliefs, that trigger our behaviors that are not serving us, those can be your brain can regrow new connections at any age. So coaching is helping that happen, and it's going through a structured process of making that, letting go of the old, bringing them to what they want. What do you really want? Like the song by the Spice Girls, what do you want? What do you really, really want? So bringing people into that place and then setting up a foundation for letting that unfurl, fully knowing that we're individuals. We're individuals, and our nines, our personalities, our lives all take in and handle things very different. I think the beauty of going through all the stuff that I went through is just that without tools, we are all doing the best we can with the resources we have. So as a coach, when I bring somebody into a place where they have new resources, they have new thoughts, new beliefs, new experiences, it is a transformation. And so that's why it is essential for both of these. We need the well-being sandwich. And, I'm staggered. There's even a book, it's called The Metaphysical Bible. And it talks about every ailment and the beliefs that go with that ailment. And so really, I will always tell people to see their doctors, do all the medical stuff, yet at the same time, even our thoughts, they can produce disease.
They can make us sick.
Literally.
Literally. All the thought patterns we have trigger our body chemistry, from the hypothalamus, the amygdala, from glands throughout the body, to produce all the chemicals that are associated with each emotion. And each emotion has its own unique signature. I'm curious as to what happens with you, because with me, 3 years into my transition, my health completely and dramatically changed.
Oh, yes.
I lost 70 pounds. My blood work was fine, and I was no longer diabetic.
Oh my God. Isn't that amazing?
It is. And it's all because of the changing of the thoughts and the emotions in my body on a daily basis.
And having the right, one, the right hormones, and then two, your body's right the way it's supposed to. And it's incredible. Our bodies are incredibly powerful.
And what was your experience with your health?
Oh my God. I would say definitely, if I showed you, I don't have it handy, but I have this picture of me about 6 months before I hit that bottom, and that person's not recognizable. And so the amount of stress the body was enduring, one of the realizations is I have a big tolerance for pain, but not that big. Not that big. So I was in pain all the time. I was like gaining weight. My hair, if you looked at the mask of my face, it was just distress. It's written all over my face. I think what I found is that after transitioning and all this, I went back to things that I love. I'm always a very active person, so I love working out. I actually even love doing martial arts. I don't do that at 65, but I'm a very active person. I am more active now than I was in my 40s.
Exactly.
Because that's just part of who I am. Definitely, yeah, people get shocked when I tell them I'm 65, but I think it's that your body can function the way it's meant to function. And when it does, the old patterns change. And all of a sudden, the funniest thing is like what I love a lot of what I deal with as a coach is the subconscious and conscious mind being and harmonizing together. Because if they don't play together, the change won't occur. And so I deal with that a lot. And what's so incredible is both our subconscious mind is so powerful. It's so powerful, we don't even know it. And so actually rewiring that, but then getting both of them to buy into it, it's phenomenal. And I think that's really where the health aspect comes. And then also if there is an issue of health, it's like let's explore what's going on with this. What's coming up for you that this happens? But there's a lot involved in exploring that. I would say even, and I'd like to share this as, a metaphor perhaps, is that living all those years, not as myself, I developed an enormous protective psychological boundary. And it took a lot of time to really chip away at that baby and to get it where, boom, I'm open. And even in coaching work, I had to go through some heavy duty coaching stuff, thankfully, to break that down and to be really at ease to talk about very vulnerable things and to talk about that publicly. This is very easy to talk with the two of you, of course, but to do this on stage and stuff like this, but that took a lot of work. It takes a lot of security in yourself. And I think really what flourished in me was a healthy ego, a healthy confidence, a healthy sense of self, a healthy sense of being and what that is. Of course, I have my ups and downs. I'm supposed to. It's called life. Those are the ways that my health really improved in all of this. And I feel really impassioned. That's what I offer to other people. And I couldn't even imagine me doing this prior. That was not even in an orbit, it wasn't even a reality. So I think that, yeah, I have worked with people after a while. I don't know why this doesn't bother me anymore, or I don't know why I just quit smoking. Well, good for you. Well, you do remember we worked on this. Oh yeah, that's right. But it's when when you're aligned as a person. Also, we all have our own personality. We all have our talents. We all have our gifts. We all have our skills. Part of coaching is making all of that harmonize and express itself fully. So
you're talking about different ways of being healthy. Are there other ways that you balance your advocacy and being out there and being on stage? How do you balance that with your own well-being? Are there other things other than the physical activities?
Absolutely. I mean, one, I have a spiritual practice. I'm Buddhist. That's really important. Second, I do use a lot of things towards my well-being, whether it will be have people do energy work or other things like that. So what I would call is like maintenance. Third, I've really become aware of my personality and my personal needs. There's extrovert and introvert. I'm what you would call an ambivert, meaning I can be out there and be out there in a big way. And then I also need times that I need to recuperate. So one of the things I've had to learn to do is actually listen to myself, listen to my body, listen to my inner dialogue that's going on. Okay. That's one of the ways that I manage my well-being right now. And also knowing when I'm out of whack. You can use all these fancy words, but like, hey, I'm really out of whack.
That we understand.
We do. That I do have things that I can lean into. I have practices that I can lean into. Sometimes for me, it's as simple as, though it's hard to do. In summertime in Phoenix, a walk in nature really resets me.
Even in the summer.
Well, 5 a.m. in the morning, maybe. But so, what a lot of people do in Phoenix when it really gets hot, 2 hours away is some of the most gorgeous areas ever, which is one is Sedona, above that is Flagstaff, and even close to Flagstaff is the Grand Canyon. So I think it's an awareness of the needs that I have.
And, I'll tell you, I'm in Phoenix too, and I still like to go out for a walk when it's 110.
Oh, really?
There's something about that heat that's just cleansing. Everything sweats, everything comes out. I dump water in my head, carry a lot of water with me. But I'd rather do that than be cold.
Oh, for me in particular, there's a different energy in the Southwest than there was in California or other places. And that energy for me is very healing. I think just to live on this path of knowing yourself better, knowing what serves you, knowing what doesn't serve you, knowing times when you need to recuperate. There are times, for example, I did get very stressed out about all the stuff going on in the news. I did start stressing out, thinking about, should I be in this country or not? I started freaking out about that. Number one, I am in control of what I consume. I'm going to stop watching the news. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be aware. I'm going to stop watching the news. Because they call it on TV programming, but it is programming. I'm sorry, it is.
24/7 news is nothing but entertainment and conjecture about what may happen in the future. That's it. I did the exact same thing on January 2nd. No more network TV, period. End of story.
Like you're saying, it's all conjecture. You get these clickbait titles that, oh, so-and-so thinks the world is ending. Well,
Right.
what is it? Who cares what so-and-so thinks?
And what's the evidence?
What's the evidence? And like you're saying, Wendy, the laws are still under review. They still have not been finalized. So what are we creating? And I think our energy creates, you either feed those things or you don't.
I say this all the time in my own, I say, like, what was considered woo-woo is today's science. Right. And what is leading that edge is going to be the science later. And so there's something in NLP and other stuff, it's called timeline therapy. And literally,
NLP?
Yeah, it comes from NLP. It's called timeline therapy, but it's a way of releasing your negative experiences and representations around a particular issue without having to really totally go into that issue. You just release the representation of it, but it puts you in this state that it's literally called a quantum release. I don't want to totally go into why it's called that, but the point is that to be in a state of resourcefulness, you're in a state of possibility, okay? The thing of not watching this news is programming, and it's programming on your anxieties, your fears, and your depression, and so in a way, anxiety is the fear of the future, but you're not in the future, you're here right now. And the same way, like maybe PTSD is like a re-experiencing of the past, okay? It's such a monumental feat to be present in the here and now, and to have a life that can live that here and now at the moment. And that takes a bit of work, and it's something that always takes a bit of work. Yet at the same time, you can open yourself up in a resourceful state. You can be accessible to a whole range of possibilities.
And that's what life is all about, is possibility. And it's our beliefs that can enable them, mask them from our vision, or even make us self-sabotage those possibilities.
I heard a therapist talk about a technique that she uses that I thought was just brilliant. We get stuck on our minds going down this path with what if, oh my God, this is going to happen, those kind of things. And she said she tells her clients to imagine that you're on a river in a canoe or a boat or something, and there are lots of little boats floating around, and you're in this boat that thinks, oh my God, the sky is falling, and you're running down the river with that. She says, mentally, picture yourself in a boat that's peaceful and you're having peaceful thoughts. She says, you can change your thoughts just like that. You don't have to run down all the way down to the bitter end thinking the world is ending. So quickly, you can just turn that off, turn another one on, or meditate, or have a phone call with a friend, or do something rather than riding it all the way to the bitter end.
I think it's like what Wendy was saying earlier. You've been able to work with people, and their transition can actually elevate into this really beautiful place that it's supposed to be. And I had this as well. I used to think, once I get all these surgeries, then I'm going to be great. Everything's going to be great. Not realizing there's a lot of all of that I had to be able to let go of.
Like what?
Oh, just really old thought loops, old conclusions, old negativity, old ways of thinking that didn't work anymore.
And all the beliefs that we formed in childhood and all the way through that kept us safe are now no longer necessary.
Precisely. And then, so you even get to redefine what safety is. Well, safety is being creative. Safety is being spontaneous and living in the moment. Safety is like exploring a new career. all of these thoughts. The words are very powerful. How we represent and how we define those words. It's like a lot of what I do is I'll ask a person, you're using this word, maybe you're using, that's horrible. Okay. What is horrible for you? Tell me, explain that to me. What if you're working from a different definition? How would you like to work? It's incredible what our mind can do. So anyway, I think we could go on and on this, but I think we've got the idea across.
We could, and it's been fascinating, Tawni. And one thing I said at the beginning when I introduced you is that there's so much hope in what you're talking about, that this doesn't have to be a difficult experience, which is what Wendy has said. It doesn't have to be difficult. Yeah, there are challenges, but give us like a final, before we close up, some sort of final last word. What do you want people to know? What's your wisdom and your hope?
Life can be a beautiful journey. Life can be a really beautiful journey. And it's what I've learned all in all. I never knew it, but all the time, the solution for what I really need and desire, it's always right in front of me. What you really need and want, it's right in front of you. And when you can put yourself in the place you need to be, you just walk into it.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Wendy, any last comments?
It's been a very pleasant, wonderful conversation with you, Tawni.
Thank you.
And I found your statement in the beginning of your Buddhist beliefs interesting, because when I went to college, I just abandoned everything having to do with my parents and my upbringing, and I got very heavily into Zen.
Oh, beautiful.
One of my Christmases, I went home and swore off the Methodist Church. Not going anymore. I'm done. And I've incorporated that. And in the later part of our conversation, you said that you were talking about living in the here and now. That's very Buddhist, very Zen, and very much part of the new science of this century, quantum physics and energy work.
100%. Thank you.
And one of the things that I am taking away from this conversation, which you said early on, was that once you had clarity, it was easier to make the decisions, and it was easier. You knew what you wanted to do, so then you could move forward. And I think that applies to so much in our life. It's when we're confused, when we really don't know what we want, or we haven't visualized it, or we're visualizing all this other stuff going on. It's difficult to make a decision and to stick with it and to let the universe open up the path for us. And so your point about clarity just really stuck with me, Tawni. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you. It's truly a pleasure talking with both of you. And oh my gosh, what lived lives we have experienced.
Well, let's tell our audience how to get in touch with you, because you've talked so much about all the things you can do to help people. I know there are going to be a lot of people who want to reach out to you. So Tawni, what can you tell us about how to get in touch?
I do have a website, and if you look, that's the logo on right over there. That's the logo of my company. It's called empowered-journeys.com, because we all want to live in our empowerment, and love our journey. Second, you can find me with my name, Tawni Acosta. I'm on most of the major social media. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, and as well Instagram, so on and so, and it just kind of goes on and on. So you can find me at my website, or you could just search for my name, Tawni Acosta or Tawni Sophia Acosta. You can find me anywhere there. And, if you just reach out to me, I'd love, sometimes I just, we can just have a call and see if it makes sense to talk further.
I saw that on your website, that you have a discovery call available that they can book on your website.
Yes, I have a free discovery call. It's it's just a little bit under an hour. And truly, with all that I've learned and can do, whether we work together or don't work together, I guarantee you'll come away with a different vision about yourself and what you want to do.
Yeah. So what a gift that is to the people.
Yeah.
Might
So,
be
so what I would say, just go to my website and or contact me on social media. I'm getting a new appointment settling system, so I'm in a little bit in nowhere land with that one.
all right. And we will put those in the show notes on our YouTube channel and on our podcast
Okay.
so that people can find you, because I know they're going to be looking for you. So,
Oh, thank you.
Tawni, thank you so much for the time today and for everything you've shared. It's been so positive, so hopeful, so just absolutely amazing. And to our audience, thank you for joining us today. This has been a fabulous episode of Demystifying the Transgender Journey with Wendy Cole and myself, Lynn Murphy. Be sure to tune in next time, subscribe and like the channel so that you know that you're notified when we've got another podcast episode up. And look at our website, thetransgenderjourney.com. There's a place you can sign up and be notified and be part of our community, just to be educated, which is what we're looking for, is people bring your questions, have people like Tawni who are willing to answer any questions, people like Wendy who are able to answer any questions. Very, very open. So join our community, like, subscribe to our podcast, and tune in next time for another episode of Demystifying the Transgender Journey. Thanks for being here. See you next time. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Demystifying the Transgender Journey. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode of our fascinating interviews. You can also find more information on our website, thetransgenderjourney.com. So until next time, stay curious and stay kind.